now we have this audio file released by Breitbart News of Speaker Paul Ryan. Now, Breitbart says that this was released, or he said these words, sort of just after the Access Hollywood tape was released with Donald Trump talking about women and so on and so forth in October. I want to play it for you, and then I want you to weigh in.
There are basically two things that I want to make really clear. As for myself as your speaker, I am not going to defend Donald Trump. Not now, not in the future. You guys know I have real concerns with our nominee. I hope you appreciate that I'm doing what I think is best for you, the members, not what's best for me. Many of you on this call are facing tough re-elections. Some of you are not. But with respect to Donald Trump, I would encourage you to do what you think is best and do what you feel you need to do.
All right, Callum, so it certainly seems like now Speaker Ryan and President Trump have figured out a way to work together. They seem to be getting along just fine. So what do you make of these remarks, and in particular, the timing of their release?
Yeah, the timing is interesting because the content of the remarks is not new. Multiple news outlets, including ours, reported at the time that Paul Ryan had said these very things on that call with Republicans, that he had basically abandoned Trump at that time and said that he was going to pour all of his resources into helping reelect and add to the Republican majority in the House. So the substance is really not new at all. Hearing it on tape sort of validates what was reported at the time, but it doesn't really add much to the picture. So bringing it back up now, on Breitbart's part, is interesting because we're in a phase right now where the Ryan care, as some have tried to brand it, is struggling a little bit in the public eye. And so you also have Breitbart that for a brief period of time, it seemed to kind of call off the dogs in its attacks on the Republican establishment, folks like Reince Priebus, Paul Ryan, even Sean Spicer to some degree, and they have seemingly gone away from that more recently. They seem to be back on the attack against those guys, perhaps to pin blame for future struggles of the health care bill on them as opposed to President Trump. A little bit unclear what the strategy is, but that could be one motive.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Callum, when we talk about distractions, you can certainly look at this as a sort of a distraction. How do we take Breitbart? We know that Steve Bannon was, the former owner, or Breitbart. He is a advisor to Donald Trump. There's a lot of stuff on that website. How should we interpret this? Should we interpret it as something that maybe some of President Trump's close advisors are whispering in the corridor, or should we just kind of see it as a blog that we really don't need to pay that much attention to?
Well, I think we have to pay attention to it. Its readership grew a lot during the campaign, largely because they were on the Trump train early, and they've become an important voice in the sense that some of their alumni are now in the White House, most prominently Stephen Bannon. But as far as their editorial direction right now, it's a little bit hard to figure out. So, for example, they have been obviously very sympathetic to the president, but at the same time, Business Insider had a very fascinating story last week about a behind-the-scenes feud between Breitbart's current Washington editor, Matt Boyle, and Stephen Bannon, and basically came down to Bannon from the White House still wanting to call the shots when it comes to Breitbart's content. Apparently, he was very upset with some reporting that Boyle had done on Reince Priebus, and basically said, look, we're trying to project the idea that Reince and I get along great. What are you doing? Why are you writing this negative report about him? And according to Business Insider's report, Boyle's response was not to just bow to Bannon's wishes, but he was really unhappy about it. He bristled at it and told his colleagues that Bannon was guilty of treason. And so, the question going forward then, in my mind, is whether Breitbart could kind of go rogue against Trump, so to speak. They've been very supportive of him all along, but their whole brand, even before Trump came along, was being kind of outsiders, right? Being renegades. And so being dictated to by the White House is very inconsistent with that brand. And so if that's more important to them, if it's more important to them to be seen as we do our own thing and nobody tells us what to do, then perhaps they won't just be pushed around by the White House as much as some of us thought they would.
Callum Borchers of the Washington Post, thanks a lot for your time. That's really interesting.
Glad to be with you.